Hi everyone, welcome to my office. This is my office at LMC, coming to you live. You can take a look around my office right now. Well, I kind of call it a closet. There's my door. Just like my crazy whiteboard. Here's my I said, oh, look at all the books. Don't you love it? I know. Anyway, I have a little bit of a crazy office, but I'm here today. Just trying to get some work done. My house is loud, like many of yours. But I'm recording this because I wanted to talk to you kind of in general about some of the things I noticed in the essays, in the rough drafts. So I have kind of a list here. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. Stop, pause, jot down notes as you need to. But these are just, I need to just talk about some of the things that I noticed that folks were doing, and I just want to kind of work through those a little bit. Okay, a couple things. This is all about the rough drafts. For your body paragraphs, I saw a lot of folks only had 3 body paragraphs. And I'm going to make a separate video about the 3-part thesis. But what I want to tell you is that you do not need to have 5 paragraphs. You do not need to write a 5-paragraph essay. You can have as many body paragraphs as you want. And in fact, in essay number 2, you are required to have more than 3 body paragraphs to kind of push you out of that formula of having an introduction, body, 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 conclusion, right? So you can have as many body paragraphs as you need. And remember, you're learning some of these new skills in your writing territories, these short paragraphs where you can really kind of say something really succinctly and powerfully for the reader. You can do that in the essay too. So that's part of the reason why you're learning that skill. Remember that your body paragraphs are there to support your thesis, right? That's the whole purpose of the body paragraph, support the thesis. So in some of the feedback, you'll see, like, I'm not really sure what purpose a paragraph serves. And so, I think that that's a little bit of a shift from English 100, right? Is to really think about, what is my purpose in this paragraph, right? Not just what point am I trying to make in this paragraph, but how is that point helping me support my thesis? Like, how is it helping the reader understand the larger point that I'm trying to make in the essay? And I found myself in many of the drafts just kind of questioning you as the writer, what is the purpose of this paragraph? Remember, too, that the body paragraphs should be working together, right? They should be working together. Okay, that's the second thing. The number of quotes, I had a couple of students ask me, how many quotes do you want per paragraph? I don't care. That does not matter to me at all. There's no formula for the number of quotes. You may have learned that in earlier English classes, and that's okay, because you need to kind of learn what an academic body paragraph looks like. But now, let's say that maybe in one of your paragraphs you have a personal example, so there's not going to be any quoted evidence. That's okay, right? The whole idea, again, is that you are supporting your thinking with outside sources and with your own maybe anecdotal experience, and that's fine too. I saw in a lot of essays that there was evidence and a summary of the evidence, but no analysis. Analytical thinking, I know, it's tricky. It's hard to try to navigate analytical thinking and trying to get yourself into that place of like, well, now I've got this evidence here, and I've explained it, so now what do I do with it, right? And so what I sometimes will tell students is to kind of ask yourself, well, so what? And you'll see that in my feedback. So what? Why does this matter? Why is it important? How is this evidence helping to support my thinking, right? You're not just putting evidence in there just because it's a requirement. You're putting it in there because you are using it to support your thinking. So sometimes it's hard to get into that analytical frame of mind. So at the end of a quote, or when you're trying to move into analysis, start a sentence with, this is important because, and then finish it. And then go back and delete, this is important because, right? Sometimes it's hard to jumpstart that analytical thinking. So that just use like a little sentence frame like that just to kind of get you started. But then as you revise, take it out, because that's language you really don't need to have in there. Transitions. Saw lots of folks asking about transitions. I think transitions kind of get a bad rap, right? I think transitions, like you think first, second, third, or however, therefore, and all this, but in between paragraphs, I can see folks trying to really force transitions, right? And what I want you to do instead is I want you to think about the ideas and how they are connecting to each other. So if you have a paragraph where you're talking about language and worldview, for example, and your next paragraph is going to talk about issues of culture and language, how can you connect that idea about worldview with where you're headed in culture? Not with a word like furthermore or nevertheless or however, not like that, but how can you connect thematically? How can you connect those ideas together, right? That is the transition that you now need to be working towards in college writing. It's not a transitional word or phrase. You can use those in your paragraph, but in between paragraphs, what you want to try and do is help the reader understand how you're connecting these ideas. If in your mind, worldview and culture are pivotal to language and kind of understanding how we navigate the world, how can you have your paragraphs help the reader see that connection, right? So I wanted to kind of bring that up with transitions. Okay, I realize now that you've been bored by this, my Screencast-O-Matic homepage. I want to show you a couple things in the class. So here we are in our 221 class. If you go to modules, and you kind of take a look at where we're headed this week, right? Again, this is not on the to-do list, so you have to go to the modules. There's a whole page here about introductions and conclusions. There's a page here about using evidence and a page about revising. These two have links to online textbooks. It's only one page. I really like this textbook that I'm referring to. I want to make sure everybody just remembers, just kind of re-looks at how to use evidence. This page, I think, is super handy. In fact, let me just navigate there. There's only one page here, and it just walks you through how to integrate sources, how to integrate it differently. Like you could use a colon. Remember, your writing territory skill, right? You can use a colon. You can use a signal phrase. You can integrate it. It talks a little bit about Mla reminders. In next week's module, I'll have a bunch of information about MLA, because that's really your last step, right? That's the very last thing that you're going to do is take a look at the MLA format and make sure that your essay is all kind of up to speed with that. But this page talks about how to integrate your evidence, okay? How to edit it, all of that. Okay, that's one thing. Something else I wanted to show you is, again, in Canvas, if you go to Files and you click on Readings for Unit 1, all of the readings for Unit 1 are here, all of them, all the extra credits. They're there in multiple ways. There are doc files, there's PDF files. If you want to go back and find the Google Doc, then you need to go into the module to find the Google Doc link. But the PDFs and the doc files are all here in Files. So you don't have to go through and kind of sift through the modules to find, oh, what week we're reading this, blah, blah, blah. It's all here for you. Okay, but to that end, let's click on one example here. At the end of every article that I have put in PDF or doc form, scroll to the very, 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 very bottom. I give you so many little nuggets here. First, I give you the credibility piece, okay? If I have it, and I think I've got it in almost all of them. When you're bringing in a source to your essay, you need to help the reader understand that that source is a credible source, right? And if not, you're not giving the reader any reason to believe that it's true. So here's the example that I like to use. If you don't tell me where something's coming from, I'm going to assume it's coming from your drunk neighbor. This is kind of my thing that I talk about in class, right? If you kind of say, this quote from Joe Schmo reads blah, 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 blah. Well, who is Joe Schmo? As a reader, why should I believe what Joe has to say? drunk neighbor, right? So it's your job as the writer to help the reader see that the information you're using is coming from a credible source. Okay, that's your job as the writer. All right, so at the end of every article, I try to tell you at least a little something about that. So in this case, you could say author David Ludden. If you know that he is a professor, you could say professor of language studies, David Ludden, right? Whatever it is, you don't have to do a whole lot, but you do need to establish credibility even just at the basic level. At the end of every article, I give you what the in-text citation should look like, right? For most of these articles, we don't have page numbers. If we do, then you would put the page number after Ludden. But in every one of them, I give you also the work cited. You don't have to do anything but copy and paste this. It is here for you. Well, copy, paste it, and put it into double space. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you that I think I sent a lot of students here, the writing skills module. It's on the sidebar. Click on writing skills. And all of the pages that kind of review some of these basic skills, not even basic skills, but they just kind of remind you about them, right? They're all here in a module for you. If I directed a lot of people to the essay structure. This is all about that 3-point thesis I want you to move out of, so you can click on that. I directed a lot of people to the thesis statement, I had folks asking about the word count. So click on this essay overview, and this reminds you what the 3 essays are that we're writing in this class, and about the word count. Someone said, oh, does this essay have to be 6,000 words? No, it does not. And that is not a class that I would want to take, and I enjoy writing. But this kind of explains the word count, okay? All right. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say. When we first started this essay topic, right? The very first article that you read was the one from David Ludden, and that is basically kind of the backbone of the essay. And a lot of you were like, oh my gosh, I had never thought about language in that way, and just kind of really thinking about language in a critical way, and kind of asking questions of it. If you're stumped with your essay, if you're stuck, stop and go back and reread Ludden. Because now we've got weeks and weeks of readings about language, so you're going to be able to go back into that Ludden article with a new idea, with some new vision, with some background knowledge that you didn't have before. If you are kind of having a hard time with your essay, stop and go back to pre-writing. I know pre-writing gets a bad rap, but just like brainstorming, and we feel like we're 5 years old, I'm going to brainstorm. But with these more complicated topics, pre-writing is actually way more important. If you're just trying to sit down and write cold, it's going to be much harder for you to write an organized essay. And it may not pass just because it's not organized. Go back and do some pre-writing. Go back and reread the articles. Skim through the discussion boards and get some ideas. That is one of the best things that you can do when you're stuck or when you're not really sure where you're going. Go back a step, right? And do some organizing of your thinking. I guarantee you that the more you're able to do in terms of pre-writing and brainstorming, the more you're able to really flesh out your ideas in a list or bubbles or whatever works for you. When you turn around then and write, you're writing from an organized place. You don't want to write from I'm just going to sit here and hope the words come, because it doesn't work like that. You need a shitty first draft, right? You need a kid's draft. You need something where it's just going to come all out and it's going to be a garbled mess, because then you can work with that. Right? You don't want to sit and try and write perfection straight out of the hat, unless that works for you. But for the large majority of folks, it does not. Okay, I still have some openings, some conference slots. I'm going to go ahead and open up some more for later in the week and for Monday of next week. Keep in mind that the conference it's an assignment, so if you decide not to attend, it just means you won't get the points for that. And I have student hours, so if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Let me know. And keep plugging along. I'm looking forward to seeing your essays next week. Hang in there and be well.